What's it mean to be back here in Aggieland and get to talk with a couple classes here?
You know, it's just great to be back on campus. I mean, I've gotten to visit, over the years many times, and been fortunate enough to come here and play, perform with my band at Rudder Auditorium, and just to be here always feels like coming home to me. To come to College Station and see how it continues to grow. You get to College Station quicker than you used to. It's just spread out more and more. And driving in from Caldwell yesterday, I just couldn't get over it. The Rellis campus coming in that way. To see the growth is amazing. It's encouraging to be on campus around all these students. I mean, the biggest student population in the country. It's what a credit to our school. The School of Performance, Design Visual Arts, performance didn't exist when I was in school in the 70s here at A&M. I mean, there was the Fighting Texas A&M band, which is always a great thing to behold. But to be able to be, to drop in and to hear about a program for performance, it's really encouraging from my point of view, because it was right here at Texas A&M, and with my involvement in the MSC committees, in the student programs office, the basement committee, which is now called Coffee House, as I understand. But it was right there that I started getting my education in music. So to be able to come back and to see how the growth and how the program has, been started and progresses, it's just, I just find it all very exciting and really encouraging.
Can you tell us what it is you were doing today in the classroom?
Yeah, I sat in a class last night with the professor known simply as Campbell, and it was the class was History of Rock, and I just talked about my experience, and I was curious, about the students themselves. So I was able to ask the students how many of them were in the class just out of general interest, how many of them were musicians, how many of them were performers or wanted to be performers, and I really just ended up having a nice discussion.
What did you learn from that experience?
I learned that there were, lots of bright young minds who are already very accomplished and very interested in the subject matter and interested in learning how to do things the right way. And when you see that among young people, that's really encouraging.
What were your takeaways from their responses?
My takeaway from their responses is that they were being very thoughtful and that they were knowledgeable. One young man who was also a student worker and knew his stuff when it came to his audio gear, and mixes shows for the town hall committee. I mean, just seemed like an absolute pro already, and that's a wonderful thing to see.
What is it about that experience that you wish you would have had as a student?
Well, I got to have some of that experience. Working with the Basement Coffee House Committee, it was a small committee. We were a small organization that did small shows, but very consistently. And there were few of us enough that we could work as much as we wanted to. And we were always looking for folks to help with the Friday and Saturday night shows. We were always looking for folks to help with the Friday and Saturday night shows. We had shows every Friday and Saturday night from 8 until 12, and we programmed 30-minute sets. It was mainly a forum for student performers, but we had enough budget that we were able to bring in professional musicians 2 or 3 times a year, and that was always an enlightening experience. So I did, even though there wasn't a department like this then, in those days, I was able to have a lot of hands-on experience before I started performing. That was in 1975, 1976, and it was the summer of 1976. Well, it was actually the spring of 1976 that I played my first set in front of an audience at the Basement Pop-Ups. But it was really the summer of 1976 that I got my first job playing, and from then on, I started performing every week somewhere. I had regular gigs here around town, and being able to play consistently, being able to have that kind of repetition in those days, it was invaluable.
Can you share what are you doing in your personal life now? You back on tour, and you released an album a couple of years ago. What's next for you?
Yeah, more touring this year. More touring. I'm always writing songs, and when I get enough songs for the next album, I'll stop and record them. But I tour. I make a living touring, and I tour. We play. My band and I, or some of my songwriter friends and I, have different combinations. I play 100 to 110 dates a year. The last couple of years, to make up for the pandemic and not being able to play at all, I played a few more than that. But things are settling out this year. We'll play about 100 dates, and I get to work with some of the best musicians in the history of the music business, and they are always inspiring to me. To be able, that's what I experienced last night among these students, these bright minds. When you're in a room or on a stage with smart and talented people, they always lift you up. They always make you better. They make you want to be better, and inspire you every time. And that's what I get to experience when I step on stage with Russ Humphrey playing drums, and Jim Cox playing piano, and Leland Sklar playing bass, and with Brad Lely, who's the professor of saxophone at the University of North Texas when he plays alto. It's with Charles Rose, who's a charter member of the Muscle Shoals Horns. To feel their lifetimes of experience applied to my songs is the best feeling in the world.
There is reportedly a concert that could be coming to Kyle Field this summer with Mr. George Strait, Parker McCollum. What are your thoughts when you hear that A&M is utilizing that stadium as a place to bring this superstar power to that field for country music fans?
Well, I think to accommodate George Strait and Parker McCollum's audience, it takes a great stadium like Kyle Field, the capacity of Kyle Field. Kyle Field is just one of the greatest stadiums in the world, and I think it's really fitting that King George would come here and play. George is such a gentleman, and I've worked with George over the years, and he's always been so kind to me. I would love for him to stand in the middle of Kyle Field and hear the Aggies support him. I'd love to see his reaction when he hears 100,000 people, give him a thumbs up and whoop all at once. I'd love to see his reaction.
Just need to get you in there now.
Well, that's they don't come any better than George. And Parker McCollum's having such great success. That sounds like a wonderful bill.
Do you have any other stops on your visit here today around campus?
I get to go to a class this afternoon. A class that's it's called Guitar Heroes. So I'm curious to go and to learn something there as well. But I'm just enjoying being here on campus and getting to see facilities. I'll get to see the recording studio set up for the department, and so I'm excited to see students who are working and hands-on with the technical end of things.
Yeah. Do you have any guitar heroes that you look back on, maybe were influential for you in the development of your career and your music?
Gosh, guitar is the instrument I've always, pursued, and it's playing guitar is well, there's always something to learn. There are always, you know, people. There's so many great guitarists. I was drawn in my high school years and in my first years here at A&M working with the basement committee to performers who could support their original songs with simply a guitar. And so listening in high school to, you know, guitarists, songwriters like Jim Croce and John Denver, and then later discovering Texas singer-songwriters like Guy Clark and Townes Van Zandt and Willis Allen Ramsey, whose seemingly simple folk songs were full of Delta blues, and to listen to his articulation. Those were the kind of guitar players that I tried. Listening to Michael Murphy. Michael Murphy became Michael Martin Murphy, who in 1975 did a concert here at G. Raleigh White when his song Wildfire was top of the charts. And he came out, he was here with his band, but he came out for the first hour of that show with just his guitar and had the entire capacity crowd at G. Raleigh White right in the palm of his hands. I thought, wow, that's really something.
I remember Dan Fogelberg doing something like that once.
Dan Fogelberg, right. And, you know, I got to see Steve Martin at the height of his touring career was here at A&M. Steve Goodman opened the show for Steve Martin, and to hear Goodman play those wonderful songs and accompany himself, you know, I have lots of guitar heroes for sure.
How does that work then when you're in your songwriting mode, between the guitar and the thoughts that are in your head and your life experiences, I'm guessing, and what else goes into that mixing bowl?
You know, well said. It is kind of a mixing bowl for me, and it's hard for me to separate a lyrical idea from the musical part of it. My songs usually start out with a lyrical kind of thought, but it's you know, whatever that lyrical thought might be quickly suggests a musical form, and in terms of the musical form, I just, you know, I hope my guitar playing can handle it, you know, and fortunately I get to work with wonderful musicians who can make my ideas better. But one thing the musicians I work with do, musicians like Russ Kunkel and like Lee Starr, like Dean Parks, who plays guitar on my recordings, one thing they do is they listen to my guitar parts for the feel, and they truly listen, which is intimidating to me, but they really listen to me and support me and don't just take over an arrangement or take over a track. And so when I get to record with great players like that, with Jim Cox on piano and Paul Franklin on steel guitar, even though the arrangements are bigger than they were when I, you know, sat on my couch and made the song up, they still feel like the same song. And that's something that I appreciate about those musicians. They not only can play anything that comes into their mind, they're thoughtful people, and they listen, and they keep my songs specific to me.
Well, isn't that the best way for you to be able to communicate what you want to communicate in your songs to the listener?
Well, I think I've been lucky in my career and in my life to simply be allowed to be myself, and I think that's always the best way to communicate with the listener.
The Brian Mayer will get mad at me if I don't ask. Bobby Gutierrez, we interviewed him after he saw your show at Opus last year, and he brought up the idea of maybe updating this front porch. I don't know whether that idea has ever crossed your mind or not, considering the resurrection that's happened. For those who have been in downtown Bryan in the 70s, that's how I visualize it. now that the renaissance, so to speak, and the conversion of downtown Bryan has taken place.
You know, Dr. McLaughlin took Jay Wright and me downtown last night. We had dinner, and it. Yeah.
Did you find the greasy enchiladas?
Yeah, we found some great tacos. but yeah, downtown Bryan looks really terrific. And we stopped by the old Stafford Opera House, and you know, everything that's going on in downtown Bryan is you know, worth a trip. Students that don't make their way down there or up there are missing out, because there's a lot of fun to be had, and there's so much to appreciate, and so much of the history that you can see from the old buildings and how they've been preserved at this point. I mean, the state of the buildings is, you know, much different than it was in the 70s, and to see that the community cares enough about the history to preserve it the way Bryan is, once again, it's really encouraging. I mean, there's a lesson, there's so much to learn from the area and the history, and you know, all you have to do is drive that way.
You have such a catalog. How do you decide what you're going to perform on a given night?
Well, you know, I try to, from tour to tour, I try not to play too much of the same songs that I played the last time. And you make the show different from time to time, and it's just you know, there are some songs that I play every time I play, and I'm just glad people seem to want to hear them, and so it really is, a lot of times I'm guided by the audience. You know, people shout out songs pretty regularly at my shows, and you know, I'm always happy to play it. I'm just, you know, it's such a blessing to be able to do something in your life that you love to do. It's every day. You know, I get to work on something, and there are aspects of the music business that feel like work, but in the big picture, it's all doing something that you know, when I was in school here at Texas A&M, when I was in high school, I was thinking about my studies, playing music was what I did for fun. And to be able to do something in your life that you would do for fun, I mean, it just doesn't need to be. I'm grateful for the opportunities early on. I'm grateful for the opportunities across my career, and especially grateful to the audience, to the people who keep showing up. That's, you know, it means the world.
There's still a place for authenticity, isn't there?
Well, gosh, you know, people, you know, over the years, you get to know a lot of the folks that support you, and that's also the, you know, one of the best parts that is actually, and in these days, you know, with social media, you know, people can just write to you, and to be able to get to know and learn about people who support you over the years is, you know, it enriches your life.